Hey guys, welcome to the Nerdventures 2017 Collection Tour Part 1. I've decided that I'm going to do a collection tour at the beginning of this year because I haven't done one in quite a while and because I'm waiting on a new computer to do new video reviews with and edit with. So I'm going to break up the collection tour into a couple different pieces because I have so many books and I talk for such a goddamn long time. So I hope you enjoy this, the Marvel Collection Tour Part 1 of the 2017 Collection Tour. Enjoy! Alrighty, here we are on to the very first Marvel shelf, which now takes up the entire top of my bookcase. I'm going to be trying to talk into the camera as much as possible. As you can see, I'm a little bit lower than the camera is right now. This is not obviously the ideal angle that I would love to be showing these to you guys, but I just don't have a tripod that's any higher, so this is how it's going to be for right now. This is probably going to be the worst sounding and also the section where I take out the fewest number of books just because it's going to be a little bit difficult to show to the camera exactly, but I figured we'd start at the top and work our way down. The top shelf, since it was last reorganized, is basically all of my Marvel or oversized hardcovers organized chronologically. I tend to do everything in chronological order. If at least for the big kind of companies that I have a lot of stuff from, it tends to be my preferred format of organization. I like to see the way the company's developed over time and have it all kind of stuck together. Now, having said that, for the these hardcovers, I haven't exactly maintained like the strictest order. There are times where things kind of aren't in order and it's just sort of thrown together. It's a little bit better in the omnis, but even there, things get off every now and then. So this is my very top shelf of oversized hardcovers. I'll pull off some things if I think they're significant, but either way, I'm just going to talk about some of them, and let's see what we have up here. All right, starting on the very far left, we have the two Captain Britain oversized hardcovers, which collect, I think, series that Captain Britain was like in the UK and was published as like a weekly or something like that. It was kind of newspaper comics. I have not read it yet. Some people ask every now and again if it is the stuff that's collected in the Omnibus that's very expensive. It's not. It's the stuff that precedes that. But Alan Moore, for all intents and purposes, rewrote the whole thing anyway, or at least gave his own spin on it. So you don't need these two. I don't think they're particularly hard to find. I don't think they were particularly that desirable of a collection. But if you are interested in Captain Britain, they do exist for you. Next up is this Best of Wolverine hardcover. I'm kind of glad that I have this because honestly for me this is kind of like the only thing that I really am interested, at least in terms of there's stuff in the Wolverine Omnibus, the very expensive one, that's more than that hardcover collects, but honestly for me like that has the Frank Miller Wolverine mini with Chris Claremont, and it also has the Weapon X stuff from Barry Windsor Smith, so I'm kind of happy with that because I don't know that the rest of the stuff is that appealing to me. I've heard there's other good Wolverine stuff. I think there's some stuff that like Mark Silvestri maybe worked on. I don't know what time period, but it would be nice to see more Wolverine Omni if they kind of continued that line. Obviously, it just ended with the one. Next up are my Claremont X-Men hardcover oversized collection that's not in omnibus format. There's the Asgardian Wars, Fall of the Mutants, Mutant Massacre, Inferno crossovers, Extinction Agenda, and that's it for now. I need to get the Inferno prologue still, and then obviously Inferno itself is a really hard to find hardcover. If you're a hardcover collector, you know that. Yeah, it's a really daunting, intimidating run. I am going to read it eventually. I don't know how much I'm going to like it or dislike it. I'm not sure if it's really my speed, but I do want to, know about it and immerse myself in. A lot of good artists worked on that, and it just seems like a really cool piece of, comics history. And I think recently it was voted the #1 run of all time by fans. It's fan voting, so it's not. There's a lot of things that are popular that I don't think are great, but my point is that a lot of people do like it. If you look at the comic book resources, I think they put out a 2016 updated list of the greatest runs of all time as voted by fans. So I think that was on the top of it. Eventually I'll get around to it. Next up is the Daredevil set. This is the Bendis stuff. I have one of the Bendis Omni Volume 2, but I have the rest of it in... Actually, this is the Kevin Smith one. This Volume 1 is Kevin Smith. This is Daredevil Father, which I think is by Quesada. And I don't know much about it. Got it for real cheap. And then the Kevin Smith one, which is the first one, which follows in on the Bendis ones. I'm missing one of the Bendis ones because I have, like I said, the Omnibus, and I just traded it away because I had all that content and I didn't need it. Here's a Fantastic Four that I've been looking to finish picking up. I only have Volume 3. This is the Mark Waid, Mike Waringo run. Don't know that much about it. I think it'd be cool if it got an omnibus treatment, just because it's 3 OHCs. It's kind of the perfect size for like a one-and-done omnibus, so that'd be nice to see. Here's the Punisher Max OHC set. Punisher Max Born, Punisher Max 1 through 5, which is where Garth Ennis stops writing it, as well as Punisher Max from First to Last, which is a series of one-shots. The Max set is pretty sought after. I know the hardcovers are. I've only read Garth Ennis's normal-ass omnibus, not the Marvel Knights one, not the Marvel Max one. So I'm looking forward to it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. And yeah, you know, cool set to have. I got a really good deal on the ones that were expensive, so it wasn't really, you know, no skin off my back to pick these up for kind of cheap, so might as well keep them around. And then if an omnibus is ever announced, maybe I'll upgrade to that. If not, you know, once I read them, either I'll keep them or sell them. It's sort of my bag with OHCs. 2 volumes of The Runaways. There's another one, a third one. This is a Brian K. Vaughan series. I think it kind of has like a bent towards like, you know, maybe teenage readers or like people who like manga or something, because it has kind of like an art style that's more influenced by that, like a little more, I don't want to say juvenile in a pejorative way, but it does remind me of something you would see in more juvenile comics. It looks pretty cool though. Again, 3 OHCs, that would be a perfect omnibus size. I mean, honestly, I'd rather Marvel stick to putting out Omni that haven't been collected anywhere yet, but just saying, it's a possibility. Nyx, the hardcover, this is, or NYX, I'm not really sure. This is a, was it X-23, Wolverine's daughter. It's a hardcover series, or a collection of the series in hardcover that I think actually was done by Quesada as well, from earlier Daredevil times. I'm pretty sure he did that. Eternals, this is the Neil Gaiman, I think this is actually Eternals Volume 4. I think there was the original Kirby one. I think there was a 12-issue limited series, maybe in like the 80s, and then maybe another in the 90s, and then this one in like the 20-aughts. I'm pretty sure this is Volume 4. Either way, it's another miniseries collected in hardcover. I do want to read it. I haven't heard great things about it, but I haven't heard like terrible things either. I just heard it's kind of okay. This one is just a random Marvel original graphic novel that I got from somewhere, probably snuck in some like deal, or I'm pretty sure it was in some other like book bundle that I bought. And then these are the Jason Aaron Incredible Hulk books right there, which have a lot of different artists working on them. I will read it eventually. I like Jason Aaron, but I'm not really too keen to get around to it. Here's my Marvel Now section. Almost, I think, all of the Marvel Now books I have, except for maybe like one of the Miss Marvels. The Hawkeye ones I don't have because I had that in Omnibus. The Guardians of the Galaxy ones I don't have because I have that in Omnibus. And the Deadpool ones I don't have because fuck Deadpool. I don't like Deadpool. I know he's like the hottest shit on earth and his movie's great and whatever. I don't like him. Fuck him. And so here are the Avengers books and the New Avengers books, all part of the Hickman Avengers thing that's like continuing to feed into Secret Wars and beyond. This is all organized together, as well as Avengers Time Runs Out, which is the immediate run-up to Secret Wars, which collects the end of both of these series. The Mark Waid Daredevil run in oversized, which is going to get an omnibus pretty soon, I think. The Volume 1's coming out pretty soon, so, you know, I don't know if the OHCs are still easy to find or not, but you could collect that either in omnibus or hardcover in this size if you'd like. Inhuman, don't know really anything about it, Charles Soule series. And the Superior Spider-Man run over here. This is more of the Dan Slott run. I've heard good things about it. I've heard Superior Spider-Man's really good and fun. It's like when Doc Ock takes over Peter's body. And it seems like we are getting to the end of the frame. So allow me to take a moment and readjust. Even further apologies for this section of the shelf because to get my lovely hands over here so you can see, everything has to be even further away. I know, I'm sorry, it's up high and it's not great. Following on the Superior Spider-Man stuff is Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Verse. Again, I honestly don't know that much about it, more of Dan Slott's stuff, and I've heard good things, so figured I would pick it up and then read it eventually. The Thor God of Thunder run, which is the Jason Aaron stuff, as well as the first of the, quote-unquote Lady Thor OHCs. This run is supposedly the kitty's titties, the bee's knees, and all that jazz, so I'm going to get around to that actually sooner than later. That's one I want to work on. And this is kind of the all-new / Uncanny X-Men / crossover stuff. I have it all stashed in the corner up here, because it's easier to bookend it like that. This is the all-new X-Men stuff from Bendis, as well as the 2 Uncanny X-Men volumes. And then out of order right now are the Loeb and Sale, Captain America White, and the 3 Colors trilogy, because I was reading those, finished them up, and will be reviewing them in not too long. So, we finally finished this top shelf. We can be done with this terrible, crappy camera angle that nobody likes, and move on from here. So, Marvel OHCs, that's most of the mainline ones. I have some other ones on these shelves, as you can probably kind of see from the base over here. But, yeah, that's the end of the very tippy top. Let's readjust and move to the next tippy top. All right, we've readjusted ourselves, hopefully more level this time as we work our way slowly down the stack. This shelf up here is kind of a mixed hodgepodge. It's partially things that are Marvel published, but not necessarily like mainline, quote-unquote, Marvel Universe. I think I've quote-unquoted twice already in this video. And it's also partially my just books that haven't been put in order yet shelf, because I'm just not that up and up on my shit. So right here we have the 2 Icon books that I have, Criminal and Incognito, the classified edition of Criminal and the deluxe edition of Incognito. Holy smokes! Deluxe, Criminal, Classified, Incognito. We made it. We did it. Good job, everybody. Those ones are published by Icon, which, again, is technically Marvel, though it doesn't really fit with the rest of the shelf. These are the 2 Star Wars books that I have so far. It's the hardcover of Star Wars by Jason Aaron, as well as the hardcover of Darth Vader from Kieran Gillen, and Salvador LaRocca, I think, is the penciler on this. Actually, he might do digital stuff. I don't even know. But those are the 2 ones I have from the recent Marvel Star Wars relaunch. I have not picked up there's Heroes for a New Hope, and also the Kanan series, I think, has a hardcover, but I haven't picked that up yet. This is my little mini Ultimates Universe section. I don't have much stuff going on here. The Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus, as well as a couple of the Ultimate Spider-Man hardcovers, just random ones that I can pick up when I pick up. Eventually I want to fill in the gaps. Ultimate Comics Doomsday, because it was super cheap somewhere. Ultimates Volume 1, I don't have 2 yet. And that's all I have from the Ultimate Universe. I do want to get Ultimates 2. I also think there's a handful of Hickman Ultimate stuff that does tie into his run, like maybe Ultimate Hawkeye or some shit like that. And then I do want to finish off the Spider-Man stuff. I wish we could get an oversized Miles Morales collection. That would be really nice. I don't know where that is in the works, but hopefully, since he's in the universe now, maybe it will happen in the future. I don't know. Then I have Alias, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. Again, just because I haven't bothered to put them in their right places yet, because I'm a bad person. Yeah, that's pretty much that entire shelf. Nothing exciting going on. Daredevil Companion Dust Jacket, because that is what I'm reading right now. Oh, and also 2 of the thick Universe and Earth X trade paperbacks, which I think are literally the only Marvel trade paperbacks I have. A friend gave them to me to check it out, so I'm checking them out. And yeah, that's it for that shelf. Let us readjust ourselves once more and move along with the tour. Alrighty, moving on down, we get to the Marvel Omnibus proper. Oh, Jesus. Yes, this is the bulk of the Marvel collection. Many of the Marvel Omni that have been released. Not all of them. Some I do not have, but this is the vast majority of them, and they are arranged in alphabetical order by the first issue of the omnibus that's published. So, while there will be issues in, say, Captain America Volume 1, which probably are published later than Fantastic Four Volume 2, if the first issue of this one comes first, it goes there. That's just sort of the way that I decided to do it. There are some instances of, like, miniseries or, like, Omnibus, which collects something from the 60s as well as from the 80s and blah, blah, blah. So I sort of, like, averaged those out and kind of put them in where I see them in the grand scheme of the Marvel Universe. So without further ado, let's get right down to business with the very first one, Captain America Golden Age years. Some of these are really hard to pull out. This is a really cool omnibus. I do like this one a lot. It's only volume 1 of what could be more volumes of Captain America stuff from the earlier years, pre-Marvel Comics time. They're very old school, classic Golden Age stuff. Jack Kirby working on a lot of them, as well as Joe Simon, Stan Lee, and Al Avison. Al Avison I don't know at all, but yeah, that's a really cool book. I am happy to have it, although it's more of just kind of like an idea of what Golden Age Marvel stuff was doing. It's not really, like I said, a definitive collection of Captain America Golden Age or anything. There's also there's a Marvel Comics, what is there? What else is there? There's an Amazing Fantasy one, which collects the Amazing Fantasy magazines before Spider-Man in Amazing 15. There's also a Golden Age Marvel Omnibus, I'm pretty sure, that has the Human Torch on the front of it, but I don't know what that actually collects. But I'm pretty sure there's one of those. And then the Monster Bus that's coming out soon, which collects like monster stories from Marvel's past, is going to have some Golden Age stuff as well, some of that older stuff. And then you get to, pretty much the birth of the modern Marvel Age, or at least the Marvel Age in the 60s, which is the Fantastic Four Omnibus by Lee and Kirby, Volume 1 of 3 from the early 60s, I think like 1962 or so, something like that. I'm going to put this off to the side so I can now more easily extract things. Next up is the Incredible Hulk Omnibus. I'm pretty sure there's not a Volume 2 of this Omnibus. I don't think this really latched on with that many people. It's a Lee and Kirby John, as they say in Philly. And it has also worked with from Ditko and some other people in it. But, I don't think it's meant to be amazing, but it exists. And I like Marvel Silver Age, so I figured I'd grab it. This is the reprint of the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus. This is not the original one. The original one was even thicker. It had, the old school... when Marvel Omnis were first released, they had a thicker paper stock as well as a different type of... board material. It was like a faux leather kind of thing instead of the matte one, and they were even thicker. But this collects the original debut of Spider-Man, Amazing 15, and then into the Amazing Spider-Man series that Lee and Ditko were doing. Doctor Strange from Lee and Ditko, and then from, mostly Ditko himself. I did a review of this last year around the time the movie was coming out. This is a fantastic omnibus. I was lucky enough to grab the variant cover, the Ditko variant cover, when it first came out, which I was very happy about because I like his art a lot. I think he's fantastic, and this is a thin omnibus, but really, really excellent. The first Invincible Iron Man. This one is, who's on this? Don Heck, yeah. Don Heck, Gene Colan, as well as Kirby does some stuff in here, and Ditko does as well. This collects the Invincible Iron Man, the original stuff, which it was Tales of Suspense, which is also where Captain America was back in the 60s. If you know about the way Marvel Comics worked, they had like distribution deal, actually I think through DC or through someone, and before they signed with Curtis Magazines to distribute more stuff at the end of the 60s, they could only release 8 magazines a month or something like that. It was a really limited number that they were allowed to distribute through their deal, so a lot of their magazines were double features, and so Tales of Suspense was Iron Man and Captain America. The Avengers Volume 1. This is not the classic Kirby cover. I think this is a John Romita Jr. cover. It's kind of janky looking. But this is, the classic team-up. The original Avengers before Captain America joined. I think he joined at like issue 3 or 4 or something like that. And then became a pretty important part of it. So, yeah. Definitely pretty cool. Fantastic Four Volume 2. This is the just continuation of the Lee and Kirby classic Fantastic Four run. Nice cover, nice book, nice everything. Just nice series. Captain America Volume 1. This is really cool. I really like this series, the old Captain America stuff. This one collects, Tales of Suspense up through, 100, and then it switches through, or 99, and then it switches to Captain America solo series at issue 100. And yeah, it's really awesome, because there was no Captain America #1. I think there's an Iron Man #1, because when Tales of Suspense split, Captain America kept the numbering, but Iron Man went back to 1. I'm pretty sure. We'll find out when I get to the next Iron Man. But this one has some Steranko issues in it, which are super cool and really good. And Jack Kirby and Jim Steranko working on a book, can't go wrong. Mighty Thor Volume 2. Volume 1 is unfortunately out of print and really hard to find right now. It's very expensive, like the $200 range. But this is Volume 2, which continues the... Yeah, I guess it was still called... It was called Journey into Mystery up until issue 125, where it switched to the Mighty Thor. So, again, Journey into Mystery was I think a science fiction or fantasy suspense kind of magazine. And then ultimately, with a lot of Marvel properties, ended up featuring a superhero, and when the superhero was popular, they just took over the series. So that was the case with Thor. Avengers Volume 2 continues the run. This is when Roy Thomas starts writing the Avengers. This has some work from John Buscema on it, which is really good. Unfortunately, they don't have the stuff that continues off from this. I think the Kree Skrull War, or whatever it is called, comes after this, because I think this collects up through issue 60 almost, up to 58. And there's some really good stuff, supposedly from the 70s and 80s. I mean, issue 70 and issue 80, which I would love to get, but they don't have it in Omnibus yet. Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2. This is the continuation of the Spider-Man run. This one has John Romita Sr. working on it, famous for his lovely portrayal of Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane. Just more Spider-Man goodness. This is going to be followed up by a Spider-Man Volume 3 Omnibus, which is going to be coming out in not too long. I think later this year, but I'm not sure when. S.H.I.E.L.D., the Complete Collection. This may be my favorite omnibus that I own from Marvel. I love it. I love this run. I haven't actually done a review on it, despite my overall total enjoyment of it. This is Strange Tales. What is it? Strange Tales up through issue 68, and then Nick Fury got his own solo magazine after that, which only lasted for 15 issues. Jim Steranko was the whole thing with this. I mean, this magazine is Jim Steranko. It's the most pure essence of Steranko's kind of poppy, psychedelic 60s, but also very venerable and worshipping of Kirby, and pushing the comics genre a little further, at least in mainstream comics in the United States. It's awesome. I would highly recommend this. Check it out. No reservations. It's just fantastically great. Invincible Iron Man Volume 2. This continues the... Oh yeah, see? There you go. Iron Man #1. Big premiere issue, so I was right. This continues the Iron Man stuff after it stopped being Tales of Suspense and started being Iron Man with issue 100. It looks like it was Iron Man and Submariner for one magazine, and then became Iron Man after that. So, yeah, more. So this is sort of at this point we're in the 68, 69 region of the Marvel Age. So we're getting later into the Marvel Age. We're kind of right around the point when Kirby is about to leave Marvel Comics, and it's about to kind of shift into the I guess the end of the Silver Age into the beginning of the Bronze Age, depending on how you'd like to define it. But this is kind of the end of that era. X-Men Volume 2. I wish I had the first X-Men Silver Age one, but that's very expensive and hard to find. This was the X-Men stuff that Roy Thomas was doing with Neil Adams. That's meant to be quite amazing, or at least really good, better than the original X-Men stuff. I think this ran up through like issue 60-some, maybe, yeah, 66. And then after issue 66, X-Men became a reprint magazine for the older X-Men stuff, like 1 through 33 or whatever it was, all the way up until like issue 93 or whenever, which is when the new X-Men team takes over, and then Chris Claremont takes over from there. So this is kind of the end of Silver Age X-Men. And yeah, early Neil Adams stuff, like Neil Adams working in the late 60s, which is pretty cool. And Fantastic Four, Volume 3. Again, this is coming up on the end of the Silver Age, Marvel Age. I don't think this finishes out everything that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did on Fantastic Four. I'm pretty sure that this collects up through issue 93, and I'm fairly certain that there's more after this that they did. I think. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm fairly certain. So hopefully we see a little bit of that extra stuff collected if I'm right, and there's a little extra. But yeah, this is definitely right at the end of the 60s into the very early 70s. So finishing up the decade that Lee and Kirby and Ditko helped define. Love this run of stuff. I think not all of these are for everybody, but if you are taken in and you find the classic Silver Age Marvel stuff endearing, then this like section of Omni is, definitely you can't go wrong with it. Daredevil Volume 1 is going to join it soon. This section, the old stuff, which is an okay series from the bit that I read in Masterworks. I thought it was all right, but not amazing. Again, there's also going to be more Amazing Spider-Man. And I hope to see some more stuff. I'd love to see a Sergeant Commando runs around with no underwear. A Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos omnibus, which was running around this time, like a World War II kind of a war story thing with younger Nick Fury. Yeah, a lot of gems in there. Really, really good stuff. Depending on what kind of era of comics your taste falls in. Alright, unfortunately we just hit the double whammy of having my tripod reach its minimum height for filming on this shelf, as well as the sun bleeding into the shelves, so hopefully the camera and lighting isn't too different. Next, we move into the end of the Silver Age of Marvel and into the beginning of the kind of early Bronze Age. First off, we have the Captain America Volume 2 Omnibus. This continues Stan Lee stuff on it with John Romita as well as Gene Colan, or Colan. Again, I say a lot of names wrong on this channel. By this time, Kirby is off the series, and he's also probably off of Marvel, or at least close to it. He didn't stick around very far into the 70s. Then we start to get into Bronze Age proper, what I would consider Bronze Age proper. Which started to develop a lot of interest in monster stuff. This is the Man-Thing Omnibus. It's quite hulking, massive, written by Steve Gerber and Chris Claremont, with art from a number of different people. This time period in the 70s had a lot of cool art on it, this kind of early Bronze Age monster stuff, and one of those, in addition to the Man-Thing, is Werewolf by Night. A very neat omnibus written by Doug Munch and with a bunch of different people actually working on it. And yeah, it has a lot of really cool art, like especially if you're into monster and creepy 70s horror stuff. John Carter, Warlord of Mars. I believe this was the first book I reviewed on the channel, I think. Or no, maybe it was Alias. It was one of the earlier books. This is it's kind of a cool omnibus. It's really cheap. You can pick it up for probably under $30. Yeah, just kind of like a standard Sword and Planet 70s series from Marvel. Some of the creative team would go on to do bigger and better things. Frank Miller, Walt Simonson are in this. Written by Marv Wolfman and Chris Claremont, I believe. Yeah, so a lot of different creators kind of adapting and doing their own spin on the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. This is a cool one, the Captain America Jack Kirby Omnibus. This is when Jack Kirby returned to Marvel in the later 70s. King Kirby is back and all that jazz. And yeah, it's a really cool book. It's Kirby kind of doing his spacier, weird, big idea stuff that he started to get into at DC, but bringing it back to like a Marvel character with Captain America. It doesn't have that much content in it. It's like a centennial special and then a handful of issues. 193 through 214, as well as annuals 3 through 4, and the Marvel Treasury Special, which Jack Kirby did all Captain America stuff for. So, pretty cool series. Harder to find Omnibus now. Marvel has not done the best job with like these Kirby books, like the 70s Kirby books, which I have a couple of here. They all pretty much went out of print. Like the Eternals I don't have, but it's very expensive. And it seems like the Kirby books from the 70s got like one omnibus printing and then they stopped being around, which is weird. Here's Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. This is the crap cover. I mean, honestly, like, it's not even that I don't prefer this cover. Like, I actively think that this is a bad cover. So, sorry to whoever drew it. But this is a series kind of, capitalizing on the Bruce Lee, crazy martial arts interest vibe of the late 70s, mid 70s and stuff, which they also did with Iron Fist and Luke Cage, kind of the blaxploitation and, black kung fu stuff. So it's all there. This is a cool series to have. It's quite pricey for what it is. I don't know. These are thinner books with really high price points. I was surprised. Like I didn't think that Shang-Chi was such a big deal at Marvel, but it seems like based on the way they were rolling out the 4-part omnibus, like I guess maybe he had more clout than I thought of. But I don't know. It's just sort of a weird series. This is the one that most people will be familiar with if you talk about X-Men. This is the giant size X-Men. Well, that on the cover is, but this is the Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 1. This is where Chris Claremont took it off. He worked with Dave Cockrum as well as John Byrne on this run. I think Len Wein, though, actually was the writer for Giant Size number 1. Relaunched the series and made it, probably the biggest superhero comic ever. Maybe behind Fantastic Four. I don't know. That would be an interesting debate, I guess. Master of Kung Fu Volume 2. Again, continuing the Hands of Shang-Chi series. More cool work in here. Some stuff from Mike Zeck, as well as a number of other people. And this again is the non-variant cover. The variant covers tend to be of original art for the series, or art that was more true to the original series from the 70s. They also tend to be pricier though and go out of print. So depending on how much I care about the series, like this I didn't care that much about, so I just sort of went with the whatever one. The Devil Dinosaur Omnibus. This is by far the thinnest omnibus that Marvel's ever released. It's only 9 issues, I think. Yeah, Devil Dinosaur 1 through 9. Really, really small omni. This is a series that Kirby was working on to develop sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, I think. I think it was meant to be turned into a cartoon. And it's Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur as they go about their business in the prehistoric Marvel universe. It's fun. It's Kirby shenanigans from the late 70s. Nothing that's going to blow you away, but if you're a Kirby fan, I think it's a fun read. This is Iron Man Volume 1, though I don't know. I thought, from my understanding, that it collected the entirety of the Michelini and Layton Iron Man run. I might be wrong about that, but this is the run from like the very late 70s. I think that started in like 79 or so, sometime around then, which has kind of famous stuff like Demon in a Bottle, and where it kind of matured up Tony a little bit, made him like a little more world-weary and kind of a broken dude, and Michelini, a pretty classically, not like he's classically trained to tickle the ivories or anything, but considered to be a classic superhero storyteller. Most of the stories he tells are within the superhero genre, but he's pretty well respected as a solid writer. Guardians of the Galaxy Solo Omnibus. This is an interesting one. It's basically like, it's kind of a weird hodge. It's not retroactive, but it is weird because it takes the characters who are the Guardians that you think of now in terms of the movie and like the Bendis run and stuff, and then it shows you all of their backstory stuff, kind of where they came from, because they weren't always the Guardians of the Galaxy. At different points, Guardians of the Galaxy was made up of different characters, and so this serves as kind of like a way to show you what, you know, Star-Lord, Drax, Rocket, Gamora, and Groot were doing at those times in the older Marvel Universe. So it's not really, like, coherent in a sense, because it's really not, like, meant to be. They weren't originally created to be part of a whole, but it's just kind of a cool history piece if you're interested in the Guardians. Daredevil by Miller and Janssen. This is the first kind of classic Frank Miller run on Daredevil. I'm reading the companion right now, which Frank Miller only really writes in. There's like a couple Spider-Man issues where he pencils, but it's nothing substantial. But this is the run where he started as a penciler, ultimately took over as a co-plotter and penciler, I think from Archie Goodwin, I think was writing it around this time, I think. And then ended up taking over the series entirely and doing his own thing with, Stick and Elektra and Ninja Warriors and stuff. It's interesting. I'm going to review these pretty soon. It's an interesting discussion about, like, Miller was writing and was getting a lot of credit, but, like, how much was Klaus, Janssen doing that was kind of taking up a lot of the slack in what Miller was doing that was kind of sloppy and fast. I mean, because Miller doesn't even pencil everything. He just, like, starts doing roughs at some point, and then eventually it's even just turns into breakouts or breakdowns, and then, Janssen finishes it. So it's an interesting book to talk about. The Fantastic Four Volume 1 Omnibus from John Byrne. Haven't read this, but this is kind of like the next classic run on Fantastic Four after Lee and Kirby. We might be in the 80s by now. I think we're in the early 80s at this point. Maybe like 79, 80. Uncanny X-Men Volume 2. This is the Dark Phoenix saga stuff. Again, considered to be quite classic. The Claremont and Byrne X-Men stuff. Captain Britain Omnibus. I am glad that I was able to pick this up. This is the Alan Davis and Alan Moore work that they did together, which collects a couple different things. It's a little bit confusing to me because, like, Marvel Superheroes was one book, and then Daredevils was one book, and then Captain Britain was its own solo series. But I think it all has to do with Captain Britain, but not that many of the issues are actually called Captain Britain issues. It's a little bit weird. But, one of the, I guess, kind of, like, mid-early period Alan Moore stuff, like mid-80s, before he sort of did Watchmen and I think probably before V for Vendetta. I'm not sure. Maybe that was around the same time. But before he really, like, exploded in a lot of people's minds. So that is all for this shelf. Again, a really solid selection. I mean, I think all these are solid. I wouldn't buy them if I didn't like them. But a solid selection of stuff going from, right around 1970 up until about, like, the mid to early 80s. So let's rearrange and keep on trucking. I should mention also on the last shelf, there was a spot up here which was the first Marvel Star Wars Classic Years Omnibus, which I'm currently reading. Taking me a long-ass time. That series is tough for me to get through. But this continues, that Omnibus series continues with Star Wars Marvel Years Volume 2. Continuing on. Lots of people worked on this. It was a big cash cow for Marvel in the late 70s into the early 80s, as all things Star Wars were, for, I'm sure, a lot of different companies that signed licensing agreements. But a cool series. There's also newspaper strips coming out right now in Epic Collections, which I'm interested in picking up. I've talked about Star Wars comics a decent amount, and I will talk about them more on the show, I'm sure. The Roger Stern Spider-Man Omnibus. This is, I think, like 1985 or so we're looking at. This is kind of like a pretty seminal run on Spider-Man in the mid-80s. I don't know. This is like Amazing Spider-Man and maybe also Spectacular Spider-Man? Yeah. So I don't know that much about it, but after the original Lee run, I think this is the one that's supposed to be really strong and remembered really fondly. Uncanny X-Men Volume 3, continuing the Uncanny X-Men road that has been blazed 2 omnibuses ago. Still quality stuff. This is a Jerome Opeña variant cover, or maybe this was the standard cover. I think this was the standard, but yeah, I like the way it looks, so I wasn't too mad to get a standard in this case. Here's the second volume of Fantastic Four, the John Byrne years. This is when She-Hulk replaces the Thing in the Fantastic Four, and yeah, John Byrne continues to script and do the series, so do art for the series as well. Again, meant to be good, haven't read it yet. There's a theme. Star Wars, the final omnibus. This collects the end of the original Marvel years, and then as well as like a couple other goodies here and there. So, Return of the Jedi 1 through 4 was its own solo series, and then Star Wars Weekly UK comics, which is kind of cool. It's just some, I think, black and white weeklies, so all stuff that was licensed out through Marvel because, as you saw with Captain Britain, they were putting out some different content in the UK depending on their audiences. Here is the first Secret Wars. I don't have Secret Wars 2. I wasn't particularly interested in either of them, but I saw a good deal on this, and it's a good time period, I think, you know, like mid to late 80s. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I like the art from this time. This one Mike Zeck does the art for, and I mean, just from the cover you can see it's really lovely. Jim Shooter wrote this. It's just a 12-issue miniseries, which was sort of the thing at this point in time with Squadron Supreme, as well as Crisis on Infinite Earths happening around now too. So that was a big thing back in the mid-80s. West Coast Avengers Volume 1. This is when the Avengers moved out to California, or something like that. I don't know that much about it. I know that Hawkeye is featured prominently in it, as you can see from the cover, and that eventually it became sort of what John Byrne was working on with his Avengers stuff. So, a cool series. I have been looking to get onto it. Squadron Supreme. This is the big, gigantic, classic omnibus. There was an original small omnibus, which was just 12 issues, and this collects the earlier appearances, and then those 12 issues, and then an extra graphic novel, and then some later appearances. So, quite thick. One of the thicker Marvel Omni that were released recently. I've read the 12-issue miniseries that makes up the kind of the bulk in the middle of this, and I thought it was really good. Or at least, it was... I saw what it was trying to do, and I respected it for that, but I don't know if it was really good. I'm going to talk about it eventually. It's an interesting series, especially for Marvel, in relation to, Watchmen and more serious work that was being done at DC. So, I think right here would be the Daredevil Companion Omnibus. I'm pretty sure it was like right around 1985. I'm pretty sure it was Daredevil Born Again. Here's the Elektra Assassin Omni from Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz. A really cool, arty, weird comic. I think this actually was put out by Epic originally. Not the Omnibus, but Elektra Assassin. I'm pretty sure that was an Epic Comics thing, which was a Marvel subsidiary in the mid '80s. So experimental, kind of cool art. West Coast Avengers Volume 2. Not much to say about that because I haven't read Volume 1 either, but just continues the West Coast Avengers storyline. Evolutionary War. This is like a crossover event that Marvel did in like the late 80s. I think this is like 88, 89, something like that. Maybe 87, I'm not sure. But I think this book is just basically a bunch of annuals for a bunch of different series, so all collected to one. And as you can see, I got it for like, what, $27, so can't really go wrong with that. Avengers by John Byrne. This wraps up the West Coast Avengers stuff. I'm pretty sure it's like Byrne's continuation of that, as well as being his, just work on the mainline Avengers series. So that's a cool one. Amazing Spider-Man by Michelini and McFarlane. This is, I like this stuff. I like Todd McFarlane. I don't know. I mean, I know some people don't like him. Some people do. I like his stuff, like, from the late 80s into the early 90s that he was doing on Spider-Man. It has kind of like that homespun comic fan feel to it. I don't know. It's like if Rob Liefeld could draw something like that. Yeah, it's a cool run. that Michelini wrote and McFarlane worked on before leaving to go to Image. X-Men Volume 1. This is the early 90s X-Men book. This still was Chris Claremont was writing on this, but this has work from Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri. I don't think this was when they like totally relaunched it with X-Men. I'm pretty sure this was still Uncanny X-Men. Uncanny X-Men, and then X-Men Annual and Classic X-Men. So this is still Uncanny. This is before they relaunch it as just the X-Men, which I've heard is pretty bad, or at least very steeped in the 90s, so it is what it is. And then lastly on this shelf is the McFarlane Solo Spider-Man Omnibus. I think this is only like 14 issues long. It was the Spider-Man series, like starting with number 1. You know, not Amazing Spider-Man, not Spectacular Spider-Man, just regular ass Spider-Man. And I'm pretty sure when this series was coming out in like the early 90s that it was the best-selling comic of all time at that point, like this issue number 1 or something. So yeah, pretty big deal. It's just, yeah, Spider-Man 1 through 14 as well as 16 and then an X-Force book or two. So, you know, again, I like McFarlane, so it was cool to me, even if it is a pretty thin omnibus. And now we are in the roaring 90s, so let's see what the next shelf brings us. Spoiler alert, there isn't actually that much content from the 90s that Marvel has collected in Omnibus, so we're not going to see that much more. Unfortunately, at this point, we are just so damn low to the ground that it's even more difficult to actually record this, but I'll try to show you stuff in frame accordingly as I'm speaking about it. Here we have Infinity Gauntlet. This is a pretty big and well-remembered Starlin crossover cosmic event. Something that Starlin was working up through with his earlier kind of like Warlock and Captain Marvel and stuff like that. And then finally came to a head with Infinity Gauntlet in the early 90s. So also has some work from George Perez in there, I believe. Seems like a cool book. This is the second X-Men Omnibus, and this is what I was speaking of when I said the X-Men. This is the cover to X-Men Volume, or X-Men, the X-Men relaunch, number 1. I've heard it's kind of not that great, so once eventually I get to this on my X-Men read-through, I'll see what it's actually like. Here's Untold Tales of Spider-Man, and you're about to see that the next, like, 4 books are all Kurt Busiek books, because apparently, during the 90s, he was one of the only guys that was holding, you know, the writing side of it down, and instead of kind of drawing, like, muscly, big bro dudes and, you know, Image Comics looking stuff, was writing kind of more classic superhero stories, and people were, I guess, responding to them more so now looking back. I think people consider them to be better than some of the stuff that was going on in the 90s, but at the time I don't know what the reception was like. But this is Untold Tales of Spider-Man, a series that Kurt Busiek worked on in the 90s, which does some like side story stuff. I think it's actually meant to like complement the original Spider-Man run with some like extra little things that are going on in the background during the older 60s Spider-Man stuff, so seems cool. And here is Kurt Busiek's Iron Man run with Sean Chen, the Invincible Iron Man run from the mid-late 90s. Don't know that much about it, but it was in Omnibus, and it was going out of print, and it was cheap, so now it is mine. And then here is the two-volume Avengers by Busiek and Perez. Volume 1 and Volume 2 right behind it. This was like late 90s stuff. I believe actually Jeff Johns might have followed this run. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I think this is kind of seen as like the last like hurrah for classic old school comics, if that makes sense. Like kind of feeling like an older school 60s, 70s vibe, because the Avengers after this run become a different thing under Bendis, and as you get into like the modern age with kind of like these big huge plots with Bendis and Hickman working at Marvel, you don't really have like the kind of, I don't know, innocence or naivete perhaps that comes with this kind of more classic Avengers stuff. Here's the volume 2 of Bendis's Daredevil run. Volume 1 is tough to find. Volume 2 I found for like $80 at a store or something, which not cheap, but also not too expensive for what it could be going for. And yeah, it's supposed to be a really great run. I've only heard great things about it. Bendis and Malieve. Definitely gonna get on it at some point. New X-Men by Grant Morrison. This was kind of Morrison coming in the early 2000s and like relaunching the X line for Marvel. I believe this actually was called... I think this was just his... It's like just the X-Men, and then his run is called New X-Men or something like that, because it's not like a new number 1 or anything. It's just the start of his run on this stuff. He worked with... oh my god, Frank Quitely. He does, the cover right there you can see is definitely a Frank Quitely creation. And yeah, it sort of started the modern X-Men stuff that's still bopping around today. X-Statics. This is a super cool, really fun little, not little, it's big, but yeah, it's kind of like a sleeper hit, Omni. I think a lot of people know about it now, but I don't think that many people were buying it, because I think it's out of print at this point. But it's really cool. I mean, I love Mike Allred's art a lot. It's a really fun, like, X-book takeover. I think it's... or takeoff, rather. I think it was originally, like, X-Force when it came out, and then all the members were killed or something, and so it becomes X-Statics. I've read this, but I don't remember the details of the plot. But I really, really like this series a lot. This is super fun if you're looking for something that's kind of like an alternative, millennial take on, mutants and X-powers and things like that. Really cool. Annihilation. This is the start of the big cosmic modern Marvel stuff that Abnett and Lanning were working on. I don't know that much about it. I'm waiting for the Realm of Kings, War of Kings stuff to come out before I dive into all the modern Marvel cosmic stuff. But yeah, I have it, which I'm glad to have because it's quite expensive. By the way, at this point, the shelf chronology loses all sense of function, so it could be that these things are out of order, and I apologize if they are. This is the Brubaker Captain America stuff. I'm not going to pull all these out, probably, but this is Captain America, Death of Captain America, Captain America Lives. Right now I'm reading The Trial of Captain America, and then Return of the Winter Soldier is the last one. I'm about, I guess, more than halfway through this run at this point. I liked the beginning of the run more than I'm liking where I'm at now, but hopefully it finishes strong. But that will definitely be something I'm talking about on the channel in the not too distant future. And then there is Astonishing X-Men, the Joss Whedon, John Cassaday run. I think it's just like a 26 or so issue run, which kind of is like a follow-up response to New X-Men from Morrison. Yeah, supposedly like one of the best X-Men runs. Like a lot of people cite it as one of their favorites, and I have great trust in these creators, so definitely something I am interested in checking out once I get my ass in gear with my X-Men stuff. So that's everything from there, and let's dive down to the very last shelf where we come upon the later aughts and the Marvel Now Omnis. Well, we made it all the way to the bottom. A sincere thanks if you're still with me at this point in the tour. Let's continue and finish off our last little bit of Marvel Omnibus goodness with War of Kings. Again, a continuation from the Marvel Cosmic Modern stuff. Although I think Annihilation Conquest comes first. So these two are probably in the wrong order. I don't even know where War of Kings comes really chronologically down here. Again, like I said, it kind of gets fuzzy as I get further down. But yeah, those two more cosmic Marvel Modern stuff. The Immortal Iron Fist Omnibus. Really fun, really fun run from Brubaker and Fraction on writing duties and David Aja on art duties. Killing it. This is artistically a super interesting comic, and it's really fun. I definitely want to talk about this soon, especially with the TV series coming up. Thor by Straczynski. I don't know that much about this. I know I think it brought Thor back after being dead from at some point, or he was cloned or some shit, or I don't know. And yeah, it brought him back, and he started this run, which was then finished up by Kieran Gillen, and then the Journey into Mystery run continued with like young Loki and stuff like that. So I am interested in checking this out. I just haven't started it yet. New Avengers, the Bendis Omnibus. This, I don't know if, like I said, chronologically, if this is quite where it's supposed to be, but this is when Bendis started his like full takeover of Marvel, kind of plotting the course of the whole company for a while. It encompassed a number of hardcovers, it encompassed a number of different series, a number of different tie-ins, crossovers, and special events. But this is the start of it all. Pretty thick omnibus. There's only a volume 1 omnibus, and then the other ones have to be collected in oversized hardcover, so I do want to get those eventually. Daredevil by Brubaker and Lark, volume 2. Volume 1 is pretty tough to find, but it's getting a reprint very soon, so good job all of us. This is the volume 2. This might be the variant cover. I actually don't know. I didn't really pay attention when I was getting it. But, yeah, I like Brubaker and I like Michael like art, so I'm excited to check it out. Secret Warriors. This is, I think, Hickman's first big foray into the Marvel Universe. Nick Fury story, kind of a S.H.I.E.L.D. story. It's a crossover series that Hickman and Bendis worked on with a lot of different people, so a lot of cool talent in there, and I love Nick Fury, so I'm excited to check it out. This is the Abnett and Lanning Guardians of the Galaxy, which is going to be completely obsolete once all of the War of Kings, Realm of Kings, and post-Realm of Kings, or whatever, Omnis are out, because it's all collected, split across those other Omnis. This is just like a 25-issue series. I guess if you want to get it just by itself, here it is, but it's going to be across those other Omnibus. Hickman, Fantastic Four, Volume 1, and Fantastic Four, Volume 2. Yeah, definitely a big thing that I'm looking forward to reading in the coming months. As I get through the Hickman Marvel stuff, it's a big ordeal to get through, but it looks really cool. Wolverine by Jason Aaron. I don't think this is supposed to be anything really special. I actually think there's supposed to be a Volume 2, but it never happened. But I picked it up really cheap, so I figured I'd give it a try. Wolverine and the X-Men by Jason Aaron. I think this is kind of like a side series where Logan takes over teaching at the school that Professor X runs, and it's meant to be a fun series, so I wanted to check it out. Uncanny Avengers. This is Rick Remender's stuff on I think it's the follow-up to Uncanny X-Force, when the Avengers are mixed with the X-Men, as you can see on the cover. And, yeah, continues Remender's work. Stephen King's Dark Tower Omnibus. I'm not going to pull that out because it's gigantic. The Hawkeye Fraction and Asha Run. I did a review on this. There's parts of it that are astronomically amazing, and then parts of it that are just disappointing because they don't live up to what you might want them to. And then the last two, Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which is supposed to be a really, really funny comedy book about kind of the inept villains in the Spider-Man universe. And Young Avengers, just a another really small Gillen McKelvey book, which kind of serves as a, I'm not going to say prequel, but like tone piece. I think it's similar to The Wicked and Divine. Like, they worked on that together, so this was kind of like the start for them to like figure out their partnership. And yeah, that is all of the Marvel Omni that I have in my possession. Thank you so much for listening along and watching along with me as I've gone through this entire huge pile of books. I hope it was enlightening and interesting in some regard. I will be doing this again probably a year from now or something and seeing how the collection has changed, so we'll get back to it then. But for now, thank you guys for watching. You should definitely look forward to more of this collection video. As I said at the very beginning, I've decided to split it up into parts. So part 2 will probably be the DC stuff, and then part 3 will probably be independent and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and my camera is blinking red, about to die on the battery, so I will see you guys in the next video.